Well, it's been an interesting marketing cycle for Total War Warhammer 3. I think that's certainly something we can all agree on, and it's about to get a little bit weirder. There's some good news here, and there's some bad news here, and I guess I'll start with the bad news first. We're not actually getting any more news until September in regards to the capstone game in this trilogy. Now, if you think that's a little bit weird, so do I. You're not alone on that front. This game is supposed to be coming out in 2021. We still don't have a release date yet, and it seems like we might not be getting a release date until September, which is pretty close to shocking. I'm not sure I have much of a better word than that. That's the bad news. The good news is that once that September timetable rolls around, we're going to be getting a lot of information. It'll be coming in hot and heavy. So let's go through this blog post here. There's a lot of interesting stuff to discuss, and I'm going to give you a quick teaser. Oh yeah, we've got some Demonet and Soul Grinder of Zeach shenanigans, sneak peeks of the other three Chaos factions, and we'll also be getting a lot of looks at Cathay when September rolls around. So here's the deal. I don't actually think that Warhammer 3 is being delayed. I think that for now, Creative Assembly is playing their cards close to their chest and making sure they don't create unrealistic expectations in their player base and have a rage storm sent their way if for whatever reason they aren't able to hit that 2021 deadline they've set for themselves. If they were to say, right now, game's coming out November 1st, and then they weren't able to hit that, that's going to create a lot more rage amongst us than it would be if they just said 2021 and then they weren't able to hit that calendar year and it had to get kicked back into 2022. I'll be frustrated, I won't lie, if we aren't able to hit the deadline of 2021 and get the capstone game in this trilogy this year. I think that is the general expectation because that's what Creative Assembly themselves has said. But I don't think that this is actually going to be an issue. I think what's going to happen is these huge reveals will come out in September, and then it will be a relatively quick turnaround time until release. Again, my current inclination is that we'll be looking at a release date around November 15th. That's kind of been around where I've been feeling it'll be for a while now. So I don't think this necessarily changes anything, because 2.5 months is more than enough time to bust out the full-on marketing cycle, get everybody hyped, show off everything, if they're hitting stuff basically every week. So it seems like that's kind of where they're trending towards right now. The fact that we're not getting news until September is interesting in and of itself. But let's take a look at what they're saying here. So at the moment, no major trailers, no future reveals, no screenshots or concept art as they prepare for the next phase of communication. When they come back from Warhammer 3, currently aiming for sometime in September, they'll be lifting the lid on the mysterious and majestic empire of Grand Cathay. So, a land of harmony, great celestial cities, dragons, one of the most powerful armies in the world, and certainly the most populous, unless that's for some reason changed in Cathay's new lore. So with that grand reveal will come information on siege battles. Makes sense, considering the Great Bastion is one of their defining landmarks, and they will need that Great Wall if they are to resist the incoming tides of chaos coming in from the north. And they'll be showing off unique elements, the general system changes that support every siege battle going forward. It'll be a full-on siege rework that'll be extremely hype when that comes. Beyond that, we'll return to the realms of chaos to further introduce the violent antagonists of the Warhammer world. But then, when it comes to the ruinous powers, why wait? Below, you'll find some of the work and the horrors that will be unleashed from the Northern Wastes and the Chaos Realms, to feast on the emotions, knowledge, and flesh of the mortal races. So, we get a lot of great concept art here that has some interesting implications on Warhammer 3, and I think the first thing I want to talk about, and yes, I love me some Slanesh. Forgive me for skipping her for a second. Forgive me for skipping my Dark Prince. We're going to the Soul Grinder. I think this was a fear a lot of people had, that the Soul Grinder would just be a color palette swap for each of the 4 Chaos Gods. Thankfully, that is not going to be what happens here. We're getting a lot more than that. We are getting a unique model. You can tell the demon is quite a bit different than our resident Cornate one. They've got some similarities, of course. The legs and the left claw are both the same. And I will be talking more in depth about Soul Grinders in a future video that will likely come out relatively soon. But you can tell there are some major differences, and one of them is likely tied to the special rules that Soul Grinders could have on the tabletop. Remember, they could be marked by either of the 4 Chaos Gods, and even though, again, it shares some similarities, the big difference here, of course, is the core body, the face, which is completely different. It is a different demon, and in its right hand, we've got completely different gear going on. So the Resident Cornate one has the sword, the Gatling gun, and then what might be the Demon Bone Claw in his left hand. I'm starting to think this is more a generic catch-all Soul Grinder weapon, and that we have not seen a Demon Bone Claw variant yet, considering that the Zeach one shares the exact same thing, and it was a strength 10 hit. A Zeachian monster, a Zeachian demon, probably doesn't have the capability to equip a Demon Bone Claw that is the strongest a monster or demon can possibly attack in the tabletop game. But in his right hand is likely either Warp Gaze, which was a magic missile special rule. I always thought that was more tied to Slaanesh. The other one that it could possibly be is Baleful Flamer, which is a literal flamethrower it could fire out of its right hand. And obviously with the Zeachian eye going on here, he will be casting magics of some sort out of it. Every single demon from the Zeach roster will be casting some sort of magic or have some sort of ranged attack. Besides maybe some of the Warriors of Chaos stuff, they will just have magical attacks with their base size and axes and all of that. So this is really cool. It's not just going to be a color palette swap for the Soul Grinders. We're looking at something much more in-depth, and that likely means we'll be getting each of the special rules for each of the marked Soul Grinders in Warhammer 3. Very hype on that front, but that is not all that we will be looking at when it comes to the concept art released today. We've got Rotflies here, Demonic Cavalry, Flying Cavalry for Nurgle. This is one of the units I'm most excited to see in Warhammer 3 because anything monstrous that's mounted gets me hype. This is absolutely disgusting, dude. Death's heads just in their potted... Death's heads in their rotting, diseased forms, literal decapitated, defecated, cannibalized corpses. It does not get much nastier than this shit right here, man. These models are amazing, and if they look half as cool in the final game, I'm gonna be a pretty happy boy. I mean, that's absolutely disgusting, and it's actually a unit that I'm very much looking forward to highlighting in a future video, one that will hopefully not take till September to complete. We've got Nurglings here, the diseased, decayed, and devious frontline troops of the Plague God. They are not going to be killers in any way, shape, or form. They're probably going to be a little bit embarrassing in melee, but what they will do exceptionally well is provide that tankiness, that resilience, and that chaff for a fodder unit. They'll be pretty annoying to get rid of, I would think, unless you have magical attacks. And yeah, they're pretty disgusting. We got mouths, Bubos-encrusted tongues hanging out from their bellies, teeth everywhere, plenty of sacks of nastiness. Yeah, if they look anything like that in the final game, they're going to be pretty awesome. This is a Herald of Zeach. So this is a Baleful Flamer. This is a guy who can cast his own magics, his own sorceries, and incredibly cool model here. I think Zeach is going to be the most out there of the 4 Chaos Gods, and maybe of any faction in the trilogy. It is completely going to break the archetypes that you guys are used to seeing when you think about Chaos in Mortal Empires. Just tons of magic, tons of arcane energies, and it's all ranged. Chaos, up to this point, has always been focused on melee output. Now this will be a completely new dynamic for the Chaos Gods. And then there's Slaanesh. We've got Demonets. Yeah, this is about what I was expecting. This is pretty similar to their 8th edition Demonet model. Gonna skip the Booba, of course. I'm not really surprised on that front. They're going for the more androgynous look, and this is the easiest way to make a character naked. A dude with his shirt off is not a big deal. A girl with her shirt off is a problem. And that's not my opinion, that's just Western media in general. I think this is an awesome model. I don't really have a problem with it at all. This is about what I was expecting, and it looks great. They're going to be cool. Demonets are awesome. And then we've got a Exalted Seeker's Chariot. It kind of speaks for itself, right? I don't think you want to get anywhere near this thing. I believe it moves at movement speed 10 on the tabletop. Hits like a Mack truck. Tons of armor piercing. Ridiculous speed. Probably close to 100, if not over 100 for a Chariot. Means the impact damage will be off the charts. But it will be fragile as hell because the entire goddamn thing is made out of blades. It's not the sturdiest contraption you will ever see. So I believe that's all the concept art. And if we go back to the blog post itself, let us see if there's anything we have not discussed. But I think the basics here is no new reveals until September. But that, oh no, there is something really big here too that I have not discussed yet, and it is going to be this final section. They pretty much just tipped their hat. Shortly after we come back, we'll be fulfilling your hunger for the early adopter bonus with news of what that will contain. Considering we were pretty much already on board with the fact that Ogre Kingdoms are going to be the pre-order bonus, this is yet another nail in the coffin if you were expecting Chaos Dwarfs or something else. My apologies. I get that some people don't want Ogre Kingdoms or Chaos Dwarfs as that pre-order, simply because they feel like they won't be done justice in that capacity. They'll need more DLC, and we might not get that for many years to come. Again, I think they'll be approaching Warhammer 3 differently. Hopefully we will not run into those same issues, but it very much does look like the Chunguses are next on the agenda. The fact that we're not getting news on that till September is perhaps a little bit worrisome on that release date front. We'll see. I think there is the possibility that we go to 2022 with all this. Hopefully it won't happen. I still think we are looking at a 2021 release date. I think we'll just hit everything super hard and super heavy as soon as September rolls around. And in a 2.5 month gap, we're going to end up seeing everything, and then boom, the game will come, it'll be there, and it'll be hype. So besides that, they're also going to be taking a look at what they're doing with future DLC, free LC, day one minor system reworks and features that they haven't mentioned yet, of course, all that stuff, diplomacy upgrades, UI changes, tutorial improvements, and a lot more on top of that. So crazy. Obviously a little bit disappointed we're not getting any news in August. Nothing new to discuss on that front. But it does seem like there will be reveals for other games. Either a new historical title, which of course, that's speculation, I have no idea. Or it's, well, Three Kingdoms development was stopped. So the only other title they have going right now is Troy. Might have something to do with Troy. We'll talk about that as it comes up, but hope you guys enjoyed this look and the concept art. And let me know what you guys think. Cathay, Ogre Kingdoms, and the rest of the Chaos Gods, starting again in September.